Hello and welcome to World Talks, where every word matters. And this is a special edition from our Brussels studio. And I'm your host, Sasha Farbach. Now, we're going to be covering today what's happening in the Balkans, what's happening in Romania, critical ally not just in NATO, but also European Union member state. Now, with the tumultuous presidential election now being annulled, much is to be discussed and unpacked, what it means for not just Romania, but also the region and Europe. And I'm delighted to discuss those things with our guests today. Welcome to the studio, Dan Barna, Romanian MEP from the Renew Group, and also
Hello.
Dr. Ionela Ciolan from the Wilfried Martens Centre for European Studies.
Thank you very much.
Let's just go right into it. I'll start with you. The annulment of this election just recently, just some days ago, how do we interpret this? Is this an overreach or a necessary action to protect Romanian democracy?
I see it as a necessary action done by the Constitutional Court of Romania, and they did it in a lawful way because according to the Romanian Constitution and Article 146 of the Constitution, the court is in its right to make sure that the election for the President of Romania is done in a fair and lawful way. So they were basically as the guardian of this democratic process. And after seeing for so many days, especially in the past couple of days, this declassified information that we're speaking about both domestic but also foreign interference in the electoral process in Romania in favor of this ultra-conservative candidate, Călin Georgescu, which created an unequal field for the other candidates. I believe that this was the right way to do it. Of course, now we have to have a proper run of the presidential elections.
All right, so it seems like there's support there. Ms. Barna, what's your view in terms of this decision by the court in Romania?
It's a bit different, but not too much. Yeah, the decision of the Constitutional Court was the necessary one. But we end up facing this needed decision because in the last month and in the last weeks, some of the institutions of the country which were supposed to react when a significant turbulence in the force, let's put it like this, in the democratic force happened, they didn't fulfill their duty. So even it became, for weeks, obvious that something particular and peculiar is happening in the way the campaign is performed. Even in the last 2 weeks, for example, it was obvious that one candidate, the extremist one, the ultra-conservative pro-Russian one, was campaigning banning all the electoral rules. I mean, none of his clips on TikTok were labeled as a campaign, as political campaign. All of them looks like Messiah start working on TikTok, working on water and talking about his discussion with aliens. And I'm not joking, it is actually what he said. And all this put it together generated this outcome. And also the way the traditional political parties in Romania, the socialists, the prime minister decided to play the gambling of the election of the presidents was not inspiring. In all the countries, so one of the candidates are advising part of their supporters to vote for the weakened one, hoping to have an easier and simpler life in the second round. But doing this, actually, we end up being favorized the pro-Russian one in a very dramatic way. So when all these elements became explicit and visible, and when the interference of the TikTok platform in the campaign was proven out of any kind of doubt, it became obvious that the decision was a necessary one.
Mm-hmm. So I hear agreement there, but at the same time, probably you'll now have forces, not just from Mr. Georgescu, but also other forces on the right saying, and I think beyond Romania, we're saying, well, hang on, this was a choice by the Romanian people. How does Europe now, in your mind, respond to this? How does Brussels take let's say, the argument here and say this is good for Romania and do it in a fair and balanced way? How does Brussels respond to what's going on?
We have to keep in mind that we are living in this extraordinary situation where we have these populist, extremist, either far right or far left politicians, local forces in our society who are trying to weaken our democratic processes, and together with foreign actors, they are trying basically to weaken our support for both of the European Union and also weaken the union with within. We can see it also as a hybrid attack on the European Union. That's why I believe the report, which was published by the former Finnish President Niinisto, that calls for the European Union to have a strategy on civil preparedness and have this whole of society approach to security, which means also focusing on societal resilience and strengthening our societal coherence. It's very important. Mm-hmm. And of course, we will have to invest a lot on this. And I would also want to add another element. We also have to have at the European Union a serious discussion about having a strategy on how to counter these foreign information and manipulation interferences, but also, which is called FIMI, but also these DIMI, domestic influence and manipulation interference campaigns, because if we are not fighting against them, then our democracy will be weakened.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, these are, let's say, wide-ranging plans. These are good plans. You said the NISTA report, which goes well beyond, as you said, hybrid threats, very much also making civilians prepared. I mean, on paper, we've seen also interference now, Mr. Barna, looking at Moldova, a neighbor, where there was also interference in terms of messing with the referendum and the presidential elections there. It's clear that there is some interference behind all this. The Kremlin has its hand in this. There is a plan indeed, but I'm just wondering, these sort of things, they take time, right? And the Russian apparatus has worked on this for a long time. There's much more funding that they provided. The DSA, for instance, comes up right now, something that's come out of the institutions to target TikTok with this. What's the next step here? And all these things, these are processes. So what needs to be done next in your mind from the parliament, from institutions in Brussels to safeguard what's happening in Romania?
The whole mechanism in this moment became a best practice for the Russians, because they tried in Moldova, limited success. Mm-hmm. They tried in Romania. They improved it and better implemented in Romania with an amazing success to invent a candidate which was unknown in the country 2 weeks before the elections, and to push him to the first position with 22%. I mean, 2 million Romanians voted for a guy they never heard about him 2 weeks before, just because they had been zombified, if I can create the term, just having their TikTok invaded and seeing hundreds of thousands of people are liking this guy. Maybe he's a good one. I also vote for him. So this is happening because we are facing a new instrument in the market. Now TikTok and the digital platform are exactly as it was the television in the 30s or 40s. And in this moment, it's also true, many television are delivering fake message. But the perception of the citizen is, okay, it's television, might be good, might be wrong. The TikTok and the internet, it's coming in a way and in a how should I put it, in a community society which is not yet used to accept that on the internet are and might be more stupid things than or the same like on television. So it's the matter of getting used with the new instruments. So this is why I think DSA and also the reaction, the necessity to regulate the market. We need to be sure that this digital act of which is already approved, became reality in the practice, because in this moment it does exist. So we had the discussion even yesterday in the Renew group exactly about this topic, because I showed to my colleagues an interview, actually a reportage made by a journalist in Romania who proved that in one day, creating with an algorithm 3,000 fake accounts on TikTok, you can reach 1 million organic views for a phony potential candidate. So the capacity of this platform to enter in the level of the society so deep that nobody can ever consider or imagine it can happen is really dangerous in this moment. And we understand every day when the things are starting to come up and to appear in the light, that how deep was this manipulation? It was not just a citizen's will. It was a power of direct and explicit manipulation.
I also want to focus on, let's segue also, you said hybrid threats into security. I mean, Romania matters as well. It's hugely important there with the Black Sea, currently constructing the biggest NATO base in Europe. Any kind of change there is going to be hugely important for European security. Looking at that now, tell us about Romania's place there in terms of NATO, why that matters now with Russia, and potentially why any kind of change in presidency could have huge impacts there in the region.
I will start by saying that I'm an optimist, and as we are seeing according to the results from the parliamentary election, we have a comfortable majority of pro-European, pro-NATO forces inside the Romanian parliament, and the main political pro-European parties in Romania decided to have a coalition to form a government together. That means they show their responsibility to present Romania as a stable country, part both of the European Union and NATO, and probably will see a continuation of our course in building this NATO base in Romania, which will become the biggest NATO base in Romania in 2030s. I don't know exactly which is the deadline to finalize this base, but from my knowledge, the government has allocated already the funds to build this base. It's a base that is done through Romanian funds, and it's part of the Romanian commitment to burden sharing in NATO, and will be very important for the medium long term to preserve the security in the eastern flank. It shows that Romania wants to remain one of the stability pillars and the regional players in NATO, in the region. In terms of the presidential elections, now, apparently, what we are hearing from Bucharest is the fact that the main political parties are in discussions to have a sole candidate, one candidate, pro-European, pro-NATO candidate, with whom to run in the elections. We don't have yet a name, but we have the clear signs that the political parties understood the lessons of this threat that we had in the past 2 weeks, and that we will try to make sure that we are leading the country in the right direction.
We know that Romania matters in NATO, but also hearing very much about how Warsaw now with Donald Tusk is leading very much now Council presidency in January here in the European Union, but also that idea of Mr. Macron now coming to Warsaw. We're hearing that there's some idea of potentially even having a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Just comment on what you think of that. How feasible is it? Will we see European troops on the ground in Ukraine for a peacekeeping mission?
It might be one of the options to have these pro-European troops in Ukraine after the ceasefire as a peacekeeping force in order to protect the demilitarized border after we'll have this arrangement, peace arrangement between Ukraine and Russia, when they will actually decide for that. For the moment, it's good that we started to have the discussion, because currently all the discussions in terms of ceasefire are done either by external European countries, and we need to have a European leadership in this process, because what's happening in Ukraine will affect Europe directly, and making sure that Ukraine remains on the European path. It's important making sure that the ceasefire will also be done according to the wishes of Ukraine, and the Russians will learn that this is not just a break in their war against the West. Will be important, because we have to keep in mind that all the discussions or all the ideas that are coming from United States in terms of ceasefire doesn't actually help Ukraine too much, because it promotes the fact that Ukraine has to be neutral and not integrate in NATO for the next 20 years, which in my opinion, it's not the right way how to see it. Then it's also the idea of having this demilitarized zone, which should be protected with European forces. While in Europe, we didn't have this discussion, because apparently we saw that we weren't able politically to start the information or the brainstorming of what do Europeans want from Ukraine and how do Europeans envision this ceasefire and their contribution in the reconstruction of and the peacekeeping of Ukraine. Of course, I believe that this meeting that will happen tomorrow is important, and of course I believe that the leadership of Poland in this presidency of the Council of the European Union that starts in 1 month will also be vital for this discussion.
Great. So we know that what happens clearly in the Central Eastern European region matters. Romania is a vital, important ally. We'll be watching with great interest what happens there. Look, I want to thank you both for coming in. Dan Barna, MEP from the Renew Group, and also Dr. Ionela Ciolan from the Martens Institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes this World Talks. My name is Sasha Farbach, but stay tuned and see you next time. Goodbye.